Hello, GSD. This is Shannon Steer again. Hey, I have today a special interview. Pauly Campanaro from Austin, Texas. Welcome, Pauly.
All right, all right.
You know, you and I met a couple of months ago when I had the pleasure of speaking in the Austin area and teaching around the 12-week year. And you just kind of popped up in class and really caught my attention because of when I started talking about role playing and how important scripts are. You were like, yeah. And everybody else in the room is like, ugh, right? And so you and I had a really powerful conversation after that class. And I'm super excited to interview you because we really haven't had somebody who is so strong and so committed to a lot of the disciplines that you're going to talk about today. So I want to start, Pauly, by share your story with us, because I think it's always interesting to find out where people come from.
Yeah. So originally I'm from Rochester, New York, and I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada in my early 20s to go to UNLV. And Las Vegas was such a cool city because it was coming up off the ground. And when you come from someplace old like New York, seeing a city with cranes everywhere and being built was just a lot of excitement. So that was pretty cool because I got my feet wet in the food and gourmet industry. And that was really awesome because I got so much experience talking to people and realizing that, man, there is so much money out there, number one. And number two is that, yeah, by the way, those people who are billionaires, they're just people too. So that really set a strong foundation on being able to talk to anybody because I had to talk to everybody. And so that foundation really allowed me to seep its way into real estate once real estate got going, because everybody was doing real estate, bartenders, bussers. I had bussers who owned 10 properties. And I'm like, wow, this is insane.
Really?
Yeah, it was like that. People were making $100,000 waiting tables, which happens, and then making $200,000 a year doing real estate because it was happening so easily. And that was my segue into real estate, is to realize that, man, there was a lot of opportunity. I was making literally over $100,000 a year waiting tables, which is insane still now that I think about it. But then there was this whole new world of opportunity for real estate. And it only made sense for me to get involved and head towards real estate and to go in that direction. And I quickly realized all those social skills that I had gained being a gourmet food server were easily translating into how I created conversations with people in the real estate business. And so I played around a little bit. I got licensed in 2005. I did a little bit of commercial real estate, invested in commercial real estate. But I was playing around until finally I was sick and tired. And you ever been to that point in your life where you're just done with what you're done with? And I was done with working on the strip. It was just really exhausting, and all the vices that are of Vegas are there and can be really wearing and taxing. And so I decided to go full-time in real estate 2008. Perfect year.
Those of you who haven't been around very long, 2008 was not great timing.
Yeah. And so January 2008 actually was my first month where I decided. I've been actually doing a little bit of coaching part-time with a coaching company, and been thinking about going full-time. And November, because that was the election, right? They had the election in 2007. So we knew at election time that the economy was falling off the cliff.
Yeah.
Right. So January 2008, it was everybody around me was saying, don't do this. This is a terrible idea. But I was done, right? So I was done with this part of my life. And I realized, okay, what is it going to take to be successful in real estate? Have conversations, relationships, right? Okay. How am I going to do that? Okay. Talk to a lot of people. Okay. Where do I do that? And so I figure it all out and I go, okay, I can do this. It's just a matter of getting to work. Even though we're about to fall off the cliff. Right.
And boy, Vegas really fell off the cliff.
And I'm in Vegas. It's a sunshine state. So everybody knows like we're screwed. So I buckle down and I burn the bridge and I go, okay, this is it. I'm going in. First year, 14 transactions, second year, 36, third year, 52. Okay. Now I had to do 52 just to survive because the average price point in Vegas got down to 200. I wish. $108,000. The average price point.
We only knew then what we know now. We all would have been investors in Vegas that year.
Right. So now the banks were only giving 2% commissions on short sales and REOs, bank owned properties at that time. So 2% on 108 minus split and cost, you had to do 50 transactions just to survive.
Right.
Okay. So I almost quit until I had found an investor who basically partnered with to acquire short sales, and we created a little team, and I hired 5 people, and we had an ISA, inside sales agents, people making phone calls. At the time, that term didn't exist. I didn't know anybody doing anything like that. He just looked at what I could do and said, well, if we could replicate what you do, then he worked backwards the numbers, and we figured it all out, and we ended up taking 169 listings in 9 months, which was awesome.
Okay, so time out. What did you do that was so important to replicate?
What we did was we created that team that were making phone calls, who were out there making phone calls every day.
You were lead generating is what you just said.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, what's funny too, Shannon, is that we actually had a marketing division where we were spending $15,000 a month on our marketing. And the inside sales agent team was just obliterating the marketing team, right? We were just crushing them, which was great now that I look back on just being efficient and effective with your money, right? Like that's just a great lesson on creating a duplicatable process that creates a great ROI. So what we did with the ISA team is that we just figured out how many hours they need to be prospecting, who they were calling, the tools that they were using. I created, actually, there was I'm going to mention it just because it really doesn't matter, but Mike Ferry had a prospecting school back in the day in Vegas. I think he still does now. But what happened was I got to be friends with Patrick, and Patrick's one of his sons. And Patrick was running the school, and I had a lot of energy. I'm loud. I like to have fun on the phone, sarcasm, humor. Like I like to have fun when I'm on the phone. I'm going to be on the phone. Why not? Right? Like, right. It's going to be a laborious process anyways. And mastering repetitious boredom is something that all the big money makers do. So why not have some fun with it? He says, look, come anytime you want. Now, I'm probably the only person in the country who got to do this, but I basically showed up every week, and these were top producers coming in from all over the country. So all I did was sit there and listen to how people comfortably and confidently and with conviction were using scripts to have real conversations.
Okay.
And I did that for like months.
Okay, time out. Huge lesson here, Pauly. Go learn from the experts.
Learn from the experts.
And take months to do it.
Yeah.
Right? How much were you practicing during that time?
Every day. In fact, that time, and I say this, and I don't brag about it, but because I love music, I listen to music all the time. I have all kinds of music playing all the time. I stopped listening to music, and I was only listening to role plays. And I actually was recording myself for audio and video on scripts and listening to myself. I was recording all my role plays. I was recording my prospecting. I was listening to other people's recordings of prospecting, watching videos. And there wasn't nearly as many as there was then as there are now on videos to watch on YouTube. That didn't exist back in 8, 9, and 10. There really wasn't much there at all. So I had to dig deep on finding where I could listen into those conversations, because that really cemented a foundation. And look, we get paid by what we say as realtors, right? I mean, that's just a fact.
Time out. I hope everybody just wrote that down. We get paid for what we say.
Yeah.
Not for what we don't say and what we keep inside of here, right? That our filter doesn't let out. I'm not talking about being bad on your filter. I'm just saying sometimes we have to say really hard things to get people to move, or ask the really big questions to get people to move. And that's what I just heard you say, like, right?
Yeah.
We get paid based on our skills of what we have to say.
Yeah. Well, look, real estate's about relationships. Everybody says that. Everybody loves saying that. Everybody loves the idea of being friendly and being relationship with people. And I don't think anybody really focuses at an intense level of like, okay, well, what does that really look like in regards to the conversation? Because if real estate's about relationships and relationships are about conversations, then how well am I focused? How intensely am I focused on mastering my communication, my conversations with, and stereotypically people are just going to immediately go to, expireds or for sale by owners or prospecting or presenting. But there's all these micro conversations in how well I connect with other people when they resist me. Everybody's going to do that. My sphere, referrals, when there's resistance and objections for me to comfortably and confidently, progressively and positively move forward in conversations. How do I do that at a higher level? And so all of all of those conversations that I was able to really digest at the prospecting school, combined with what I was doing separately to really learn another language, because that's the way I looked at it, Shannon. I'm like, okay, I need to learn to speak another language. And when I can do that at a high level, and that's applied at a massive level, I know things are going to happen. And that's exactly what did happen.
Well, and I would tell you just from, traveling across the country and speaking for so many years around scripts, Pauly, typically when you say the word scripts in a room, people literally double over and they go, oh gosh, there's no way I can do that. Yet, if you know your scripts at a high level, you're not worried about what you're going to say next, because you can actually stop and listen to the person, function with that conversation at a higher level, because the scripts are in your bones and they become like reflexes.
Yeah. Well, you know what, too, honestly, Shannon, is that there are so few people who are really committed to the conversation and to committed. Let me actually rewind this. There are very few people that are actually committed to relationships the way that you and I are.
Right.
Meaning, we understand that they take maintenance. Right. I need to stay in touch with people, and that by staying in touch with people, that's even only half the battle, because how good are my conversations when I stay in touch with people?
Right.
How good are my conversations initially when I'm trying to create new relationships, right? New business to grow my database. There are very, very few realtors out there because they can lean so heavily on the dollar and they just spend a boat ton of money on leads. And they allow that, regardless of what their ROI is, they allow that to really supersede the efficiency and the effectiveness of focusing on the quality of the conversation. So because of that, there's very few leaders and people out there that appreciate that. Well, then a lot of realtors come into the business and they get these shoddy introductions to coaching and training or guidance or leadership around the quality of the conversation and what that really, really means, and what scripts really, really mean, which is scripts are just a foundation that are not meant to restrict you and confine you, but they're meant to unleash the beauty of who you are, because how Shannon has a conversation is completely different on how Paul's going to have a conversation, right? Versus anybody else who's going to have a conversation. But those scripts are they're the science of a great conversation, the structure and the strategy around a great conversation, so that you can do the number one thing when you're having a conversation: listen. Yeah, that's it. Look, you mean you're doing it right before I was going to say it, right? Mm-hmm. And listen, so that you can figure out what the next best question is. And when people are so worried about or so they complain about their business, really what's happening is they're not having enough conversations. Certainly not having enough good conversations.
Right.
And they're not committed to the relationship. They're either being selfish because they're so scared about what they're going to sound like or what people are going to think of them, versus really putting it outwards on, look, I want to connect with people. I want to serve people. How do I do that? Well, to connect with people and understand them, to see if I even can serve them, I have to ask better questions, hence better conversations. And then, man, everybody feels better about that.
Right. Well, and I think it's important that people know that scripts are not you reading from a book going, hey, I would like to meet you someday. And who do you know? Stop that shit. Like, It's just so bad, right? Scripts to me, it can be a 3-word or a sentence or a couple sentences or whatever, simple, quick answers, right? We're all scripted, whether you think you use scripts or not, you use scripts. You say the word no all the time. That's a script.
Yeah.
You say the words, I don't know all the time. Well, that's a script. And when you learn some of the basics of scripts and you practice them, and this is one of the conversations that you and I had at length, and we talked about it there that day in Austin, which is how I met Laura. And I met Laura in Bold originally, Laura Blessing, and she and I became role play partners because we shared the same coach the year that I came back out as an agent. Now, Pauly, I'd already sold hundreds and hundreds of homes. I'd already taught 3,500 agents through Bold. I'd already done 6,000 coaching calls. You wouldn't think that I would need to warm up on scripts before I got on the phone. Yet truly,
You do.
I knew
Yeah.
I knew that I still had to practice because I practiced all the time before I taught Bold. I mean, I still practiced on my 35th time that I went to do Bold.
Yeah.
And the practice makes perfect, right? I look at like my boy, Patrick Mahomes, like how many hours does he practice versus how many hours he actually plays?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I still practice my listing presentation before I go in and compete.
So I got a good story.
There's so many people that don't practice. So what's the power of practice?
So I'm 12 years old. My dad takes me to a Chicago Bulls game. You know who's playing, right? Michael Jordan's playing, and he's shooting free throws along with everybody else. Everybody else goes into the locker room, and he's still sitting there. There's a ball boy feeding him balls, and you can see Michael's not looking at the ball boy, so it's his peripheral vision. He's staring at the hoop. He's getting fed balls. Swish, 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 swish. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, man, this guy's really hot dogging it right now. Why doesn't he just go into the freaking locker room and like, let's start this game, right? And I came there to see Michael Jordan. It was New Jersey, and then so the game starts. More people are cheering for the Bulls than they are for the Nets, partly because the Nets sucked. But it's Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan scores 42 points. He doesn't play the fourth quarter. Right. He catches an inbound pass from Scottie Pippen halfway through the game, jumps up. He's on a breakaway. He's all by himself. Bang. He slams the ball. It's like the Michael Jordan slam, where he's like the move. Right. So fast forward 20 years later, and I'm role playing and I'm practicing and I'm actually beginning to coach now at that time. And then bam, it just hits me in my head. Right. Like, oh yeah. Like he's sitting there practicing the simplest shot in basketball, the free throw.
Yep.
He's
and a
doing
critical shot, by the way, under pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. He's out there longer than anybody else. And then the more I learned about him afterwards, right, is like, yeah, look, it's the fundamentals. It's the fundamentals, because when I can internalize them at such an automated level, then when pressure comes and those objections or that resistance and what we do, right, comes, then I can, instead of that internal, worry or anxiety that comes when the moment of impact comes and I get that objection or that resistance, I can take a deep breath and I can smile and I can pull up my chair closer and go, let's talk about that.
Yeah. And then you're ready to listen because you're not worried about what you're going to say next, because all of a sudden your scripts are in your reflexes.
Right.
I used to say, you got to get them in your bones. You got to say them so many times that it's in your bones. Right.
Yeah.
And when I would teach Bold, I mean, it was so funny because people were like, I don't like scripts. I don't like scripts. I don't like scripts. I said, do I sound like I'm reading from a script? They're like, well, no, I have a 300-page script in my hand right here. Do you see this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm scripted.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh,
yeah.
Be yourself. So one of the things that I teach is a question circle. And the only script you have to know is what, how, who, and by when. And literally just by listening and keyword backtracking, you can handle objections that way. You can move people fast through the sales circle. You can recruit. I built it for recruiting. And it's such an easy thing. If you just know the first word of the next sentence, it allows you to stop and listen.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about the structure of your team now, Pauly, and where you're going, because you just relaunched your team last year. You just relaunched back in real estate last year after coming out of leadership.
Yeah, relaunched. So I got recruited to Austin, Texas, and I was in leadership for 4 years. So stepped down in 2020, took a few months to figure it out and mastermind my plan of attack for 2021. And 2021 was my first full year back in. And you want me to share on all that?
Yep. You closed 15 million.
Yeah. 15 million, closed 15 million my first year back. I was part-time. I was doing some coaching. I was doing some consulting for a venture capital business. So my hand was kind of halfway in the pot. And 2022, I have a buyer's assistant, a buyer's agent, an ISA, and an administrative person. So,
and what's your goal this year?
So the goal this year is 40 million.
And how many deals is that?
For us, that will be 65.
Can I move to Austin?
Yeah. Hey, I put my time in Vegas, man. I deserve this. So I was in pain for a while. So this is, I'm feeling good about this.
I totally get it. Yeah. And, no matter what market it is, cause I coach across the country, like everybody has their own animals, right? Like for us, it's price range. However, it's way different. We don't have the swings that a lot of other people do on the coast. And so talk to me about your daily routine, because I think this is really critical. A lot of people who come into real estate, Pauly, and you've seen this as a team leader and being a team lead, don't know what to do every day. Number one. Number two, they get in because freedom, flexibility, and the money. Except nobody ever teaches them the D word.
Discipline.
Which is discipline. You got to discipline first to get to the money, and then you finally get to the freedom and the flexibility.
Yeah.
So talk to us about your discipline, because this is something that you brought up that day in Get the Plan around the 12-week year. And I really liked it. I wanted you to talk about it.
Yeah. So I can't remember his book, Jocko Willis, the Navy SEAL, discipline, extreme ownership, right? I mean, amazing book to read on discipline equals freedom. Right. And that's been my creed as far as being, so I got a big painting up in my office that says humble, hustle. And that's my creed, right? Be humble and hustle hard. Because discipline instills all the consistency that I need to just do what I need to do, which is our really basic fundamental steps. Like the magic pill is consistency. And there's always room at the top because it's boring and it's hard.
Yeah.
And so, we want to believe that it's people want to believe when they get into the business or they've been in the business a little bit and they're hanging on to the belief that it's something else. It's not, it's just discipline. So for me, knowing that I just have to show up and do what I'm supposed to do, and that everything else is going to take care of itself, was important to establish that consistency. Because even though I wake up and my wife says, "Oh, you're a morning person." No, I'm a morning person because I have to be, because I don't want to be working on real estate 11 and 12 o'clock at night. Now, when you're new to the business, like you're going to work more than you would year 5 or 6 or 7, in regards to when you work, when you choose to work. Right. But if you establish those disciplines, you can set up boundaries in regards to what you're doing and when you're doing it. And so, so for me, discipline was a big thing on really creating a foundation of like how my day went. So for instance, waking up at 5 a.m. every day, being in the office by 7 a.m., starting our role play by 8 a.m. Everybody's on the phone by 9 a.m. We have 2 sprints that we do, and our sprints are just 2 blocks of time. And because everybody has a calendar and everybody has time blocks, and we're doing our 2 sprints, which are we prospect investors first thing in the morning, mostly non-owner occupied, absentee homeowners. Everybody calls on them. Even if you're a buyer's agent, my buyer's agent still calls, because look, we get listings bring buyers.
Right.
We get listings bring open house opportunities. So it only makes sense that the buyer's agent's part of that. And then the second sprint's a little bit different, depending on the ISA's calling a little bit of circle prospecting, internet leads. He's following up on a lot of the internet leads that we do. And then after the 2 sprints, then everybody's doing follow-up. So it's a good 3 hours of initial lead generation, and then a half an hour to an hour of follow-up.
Okay.
So after that, though, it's I don't want to say a free for all, because either they're servicing, Jesse's working, my buyer's agent's working with buyers in the afternoon, or coaching sessions, because we have a coaching session once a week. We have a team meeting once a week. We have special trainings. Like right now, we're doing a special training from Darren Hardy called Insane Productivity on how to be more efficient and effective. And we provide advanced training for the team. But there's a very specific schedule that we're following to make sure that we're staying on track.
So you have your calendar's time blocked. How do you make sure and actually live in the calendar? Because this is something I hear a lot. I have the prettiest calendar in the world, except I can't live in it. I can't stay in it. How do you stay in it?
That's the $1 million question.
You're
right?
right.
So,
You're a variety thinker, and I know that about you. So how do you stay in it? Because it's boring.
Yeah. So here, accountability is one thing, right? That's one thing, is where we're highly accountable on the team in regards to what our goals are, and breaking up through the 12-week year, like what we're focused on these 12 weeks, this quarter. And then there's a lot of little tiny things that I do. Like my calendar audibly pings me. My phone is synced to my calendar. So my phone is, it does a little notification interruption. I had to do this, is I have 4 screens. And while that may be a little bit traumatizing for some people, but one of my screens specifically is my calendar.
Okay.
And my calendar is like, it's right up over here right now. And it's like looming over me all day long. Right. Because I need to visibly see what I'm doing through the day and know that, am I on track? What's happening? If I'm erasing, then I'm replacing. And that visibility, and it's color coded, gives me more awareness and wherewithal to make sure that I'm staying on my calendar. For me, it's 75%. If I can stay on script for my schedule, 75%, because look, fires are going to happen. Personal stuff, or
kids are going to happen.
It's just
something's going to happen.
Yeah. Right. And so I have to leave some margin there for grace, because look, we're humans, and it happens.
How do you have, what drive is it that you have internally that keeps you so accountable to your goals? Because you've said that a couple of times, and I think that's an important thing to touch on.
Where's the drive come from? Yeah. So I think, I had an interesting childhood. I had a very interesting childhood. My parents were divorced when I was 12. There was a lot of dysfunction. And for me, instead of turning that dysfunction or funneling that dysfunction into alcohol or drugs, or how everybody copes differently, right? Like in a way, I turned that into, okay, I don't want my life to be like that and like this. And so that was a very severe drive factor in my life, where like I want my life to be different, and I want the freedoms that my parents didn't experience. And that really was a searing hot driving factor in me providing financial freedom for the way I want it. And more importantly, how to teach my kids the things that I didn't learn. And a lot of it because my parents just didn't know it or weren't taught it. Right. It's not that they were bad parents. They didn't know any better. Right. And they didn't have those tools and skills. So I want to know, okay, man, what an interesting time in history we live in right now, that we can acquire knowledge the way that almost all human beings who have ever existed have not been able to do. Right. We can acquire that knowledge. And we live in a country where there are less things in our way. We have more freedoms to be able to go and attain those things, to acquire those things, or to do those things. And the more I opened up myself to where I wasn't, and where and understanding where I come from and understanding where I wanted to be, the more I realized, okay, I need to acquire more knowledge, and I need to, and it just takes action to be in motion so that I can have those freedoms, give my children those freedoms. And I think it was a real appreciation of just how crappy I thought things were when I was younger. And that really perplexes me maybe, because for teams, right, is like, how do I tap into that for people with my team? Or if you don't have that, right, or you're trying to figure that out, you don't have a searing hot factor.
Right.
Right. Then you need to aggressively go find it, or maybe just, and maybe this is the wrong thing to say, I don't know, or maybe just subdue yourself to the fact that, look, it's going to be mediocre or mid-level, or you're not going to have this grandioso life. And not that that's better, right? It's just, if we're trying to attain things, or we're trying to attain our goals, like figuring out where our goals are based off of understanding what we want, how much of it we want. I think we got to be real with ourselves on that. I don't know. I might be rambling here. You're supposed to stop me when I'm rambling.
Well, here's my analysis of that. When I see people that grew up, like myself, with a very simple childhood, and, parents who did the very best they could, they just didn't have what we have today, right? Like we just had such a different life than most of our parents have. People don't understand why we're so driven. And that's what I was getting at. There are people, no matter what their behavior is, they have a deep drive. And that's what I hear from you. Like, I want to be a great role model as a parent. I want to create a different life for my kids than what I had. And sometimes you have to dig deep to find out what that is, and really define it. Because if you're just going along in life being average, and if that's okay with you, that's great. We get judged a lot, though, for those of us who are super driven, who are like, I want more, I want more, I want more. And it's not about the money.
Mm-mm.
To me, it's about being an incredible role model for my children as they especially come into the work world and get out of college. And, how important is it that I go and be my very best every day and support them so they can see what that looks like as an adult?
Yeah. It's the full expression of being human for me, like the full capacity of who God created me to be, right? Like I want to make sure that, and there's different levels of, there's different areas of that, spiritually, economic, financially, professionally, physically. But I want to attack that. And I think it's from that pain that I had as a child that really drives me hard. And for people who don't have like significant, but there's something, right? There's something in regards to how you're living your life, or who you are, or what you don't want to be, or thinking about where you don't want to be in 20 years from now, something to identify and to really latch onto to be able to drive you harder, because you want something. Right. Or you don't want something to happen, right?
And how do you quit self-sabotaging yourself so that you actually get it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear you saying, I'm not self-sabotaging myself anymore, because I will own my calendar. I will practice. I will be my very best.
Well,
I'm going to grow slow and do things right and lead and care about people. And you're doing that from a place that's just a really good place, right?
Well,
like
I'm
you're
doing
coming
that
from abundance.
I'm doing that because I know I will self-sabotage myself, and I do. Not because I don't like I'm not going to do it. I'm doing that because I know I want to take an easier route. I know that I'm going to be lazy about something. I know that, I'm going to be distracted. So because of that,
just like go at it so that you don't do that.
Or I can at least minimize it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm human, right? Like
we love distractions. You're I am. So if you're a brand new agent, what advice would you give them coming into the business?
Who you surround yourself with matters. It's a lonely business. Even when you're in an office, right? Like you're doing this on your own, really, kind of, sort of. I mean, okay, you got a great broker, you even have a coach, but I think the more people you can surround yourself with to begin and continue breaking these bad habits or patterns of belief or inactions, to be able to create momentum and maintain and sustain momentum, because real estate's a 90-day cycle, right? I mean, I meet you today at the open house and you want to work with me. I still probably not getting paid for 90 days if I'm lucky in some scenarios, right? So I need as much support, mentally and emotionally as possible, strategically, right? To be able to carry me through, because it's a challenging entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship in general is challenging. It's very challenging. I think real estate's probably more as challenging as anything else, because it's not a product; it's a service, right? And it pertains to the most emotionally tied thing that we can engage them with outside of their relationship with their significant other is their home.
Right.
They're so emotionally tied to it, invested to it. And these memories, we're trying to put price tags around memories. Like it's an emotionally engaged process. So who you surround yourself with just matters.
Yeah, it does. So if I'm an agent and I don't believe in scripting and I don't believe in practicing and I'm just going to go wing it all the time, what would you tell me?
Quit.
I love that. Because those people who are practicing are going to eat your lunch.
Yeah. And you know what? Do you want your real estate business to be harder or easier?
Yeah.
You know, do you want your business to come slower or faster? You know, Gary one time, Gary Keller was on stage one time and he had a shirt on and it said, and I saw the shirt in the family reunion one year and the shirt said, organic and disruptive. Have you seen that shirt?
Mm-mm.
So the shirt, it's a simple line: disruptive, going upwards; organic, just barely nudging upwards. I saw the t-shirt in the gift shop. They were selling them. And when I first saw it, I'm like, this is such a dumb shirt. I'm like, what a dumb shirt. So stupid. And Gary gets up there, he starts talking about being disruptive or being organic, right? Because being organic, like, okay, I'll just take it as it comes type of realtor. You know, I'm not going to, worry about scripts and conversations and being strategic with people. I'm going to
wait for the phone to ring.
Yeah. I'm going to love on people and tell them how awesome I am and do TikTok videos and entertain them.
We both have the same, like,
these realtors who think they need to be entertainers, keep doing
the
that,
educators.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
The educators, for goodness sake.
So he goes, or you can be disruptive and go out there and engage people, get in relation, make it happen through being intentional about creating relationships. How do I do that? I have better conversations, right? So he gets through the whole spiel and he's talking and I'm like, I got to go get that t-shirt. Yeah. After an hour before, I'm like, that's the dumbest thing ever. Yeah. So, yeah.
And if you're leading a team or launching a team, how critical is it that you set the standard as the leader to do the activities as well?
People will never, ever do what we tell them. They'll only do what they see is what they see. We're monkeys. We're just monkeys. Monkey see, monkey do. Right. So, I prospect with my team every morning. And I'm not prospecting the same way they are, but they hear me on the phone. Actually, today or tomorrow, I've scheduled myself another session where I'm going to record myself doing their type of calls because I haven't been able to model that in front of them because I want to hear them. We're going to go through it exactly how I'm engaging and maneuvering through the conversation because as leaders, look, I know that's so cliche and everybody's heard that before. We lead by example, but it's the biggest problem in leadership. And while we may not do what they're doing, there's ways for us to exemplify that in leadership so that they can learn from that. And so that the standard's not done here, right? The standard's done here. Okay, there it is. Look at them. Look at her. It's happening. That's how it goes. That's what we do. That's what this tribe's about.
Does your audio match your video?
Yeah.
Or do you walk the walk? Yeah, yep. I love that. Well, Pauly, thank you so much for your time today. Do you want to talk about your scripts?
Yeah, you could email me therealsalestalk@gmail.com and I offer a free copy of the playbook. And my playbook's just a compilation of skills, strategies, and mindset that got me to take 169 listings in 1 year. And I've refined it for probably the great thing about what's different about the playbook is that the scripts in that playbook are so refined from real-time conversations, because so many scripts, most scripts actually are, they're written up in a lab at, the real estate company or the real estate coaching office, and they sound pretty good. And maybe they've been role played a bit, but these scripts are truly refined on casual, comfortable conversation, strategic conversation that's been refined over the years, from everything from sphere of influence to internet leads and everything in between, pre-qualifying to price reductions to objection handlers, and people just love it. And I'm legitimately coming from contribution. There's I'm not going to try to hire you to coach. I don't want to coach anybody. I'm not in the coaching business. I'm not trying to sell you anything. So this is 100% contribution.
You would like the referrals though, if they're moving somebody to Austin.
The email will tell you that I would love your referrals here
Yes.
in and around Austin, Texas area.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So if you guys are interested in Pauly scripts, Pauly, we will put your email in down below once we post this. You can email him directly so that you can go into his referral database, because that's what I just heard you say is you're creating a referral database by putting wood in the wood stove before you ask for heat back. Then you're going to ask for referrals back, right? And what a great resource. So thank you so much today. I'll see you guys in the group. If you have any questions, please post down below, and Pauly, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Shannon.